Title: The Night They Stopped Coming. I moved to Ashwood 3 years ago, drawn to its quiet charm, thinking I could finally escape the endless noise of the city. The town looked like a postcard, neat streets lined with maple trees, white picket fences, and friendly neighbors who smiled as you passed. For the first few months, I was content. I walked to the corner store, greeted people on my morning jog, and felt the calm settle into my chest like a warm blanket. But it didn't take long for subtle strangeness to creep in. It started with Mr. Keaton, my neighbor across the street. He was an older man, stooped, with a smirk like he knew secrets no one else did. Every morning he tended his garden, waving as I walked by. Then one morning he was gone. His garden was overgrown, the gate ajar. I assumed a trip or visit to family. But when I asked Mrs. Linden down the street, she stared at me blankly. Mr. Keaton, never heard of him. I laughed nervously, thinking it a joke. But the next day the house was stripped of all signs of life. No furniture, no car, mailbox empty. He had vanished. Soon others followed. Abby, the cashier at the corner store, didn't exist one Tuesday morning. The manager looked at me like I was crazy. Abby never worked here. A delivery man, a mail carrier, even a jogger who ran past my house every morning, all gone. And with each disappearance, no one seemed to notice or remember. At first, I questioned my own mind. Maybe I was imagining it, misremembering. But the evidence piled up. I started keeping a notebook, meticulously recording everyone I saw, along with dates, habits, and strange details. The notebook grew thick with lives that seemed to evaporate into thin air. By the end of the first year, I realized Ashwood had rules no one else followed or noticed. The town erased anomalies, correcting itself, protecting its illusion of normalcy. Anyone who paid attention, who tried to leave, who saw patterns, it took them. The first encounter that shook me was in the northern forest, where the fog rolled in thick each autumn. A light flickered among the trees. As I approached, a man crouched there, wide-eyed and terrified. "You can see it too," he whispered. What are you talking about?" I asked. "They're coming for anyone who notices, anyone who tries to leave." Before I could speak again, he bolted. I chased him, stumbling over roots and wet leaves, but he vanished. No trace, no sound. I knew then I was not imagining this town's malice. I began documenting obsessively, visiting town hall, the library, and the police station for records. Everything was normal, everything accounted for. Yet when I asked about the missing, people's blank expressions and subtle confusion told me more than words ever could. I started observing every newcomer, a couple moving into the vacant house across the street, a delivery boy who always smiled, a teacher starting at the school. Within days or weeks, they vanished. Cars disappeared, homes emptied, names erased. Each event built my obsession and fear. The daily life of Ashwood became a careful routine of observation. I would walk slowly, avoid streets where shadows lingered, never speak to neighbors unnecessarily. The town became a cage, and I felt like a ghost in my own life. Every leaf that fell, every shadow that twisted unnaturally, every flicker of light made my heart race. Then came the winter vanishings. A family moved in near the school. The parents were cheerful, the children energetic. They played outside, waved at me occasionally. By the third week, the father was gone. Then the mother. Then the children. Their house emptied, curtains drawn, and the neighborhood moved on as if nothing had happened. Not a single person remembered them. I began seeing patterns in the disappearances. Most occurred after someone expressed frustration, desire to leave, or questioning the town's oddities. Ashwood punished curiosity, erased it, corrected itself. I tried to warn people. One afternoon, I ran into a neighbor, Mrs. Hall, walking her dog. "People disappear here," I said. She blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" I insisted, but she laughed nervously and walked away. Nobody would listen. Nobody would remember. I became more cautious, paranoid. Every sound, every shadow, every flicker of light became suspect. I even avoided my own front yard, observing from behind curtains. My notebook became my lifeline, a way to prove my own existence. The forest became the center of my fear. Shadows moved between trees, subtle glimpses of figures that disappeared if I looked directly. At night, I heard whispers, barely audible over the wind, as if the town itself murmured warnings. By midwinter, I had planned an escape. I packed essentials, my journal, cameras, and documents proving the existence of the vanished. I took backroads, trying to avoid patterns, using routes I had memorized over months. The forest loomed on both sides. Fog thickened. Shapes moved at the edges of vision. Roads curved unnaturally, looping back, trying to trap me. And then I saw them. Figures in the fog, precise and deliberate, watching, waiting. Not fully human, not fully shadows. I pressed the accelerator, weaving through the loops, ignoring the whispers. Hours passed. The forest stretched endlessly. Exhaustion weighed on me, my hands cramped, heart pounding. I thought I had reached the highway, the open road to freedom, but a thick wall of fog rose ahead and shadows pressed closer. I realized then the terrifying truth. Ashwood did not want me to leave. The town itself was alive, protecting itself. It was not forgiving. By dawn, after hours of near misses and desperate navigation, I found a weak spot, a stretch of highway that seemed to break the forest's hold. I drove with every ounce of energy left in me, my vision blurred, heart racing, until the forest ended and the open road stretched before me. I collapsed at the roadside, trembling, exhausted. Behind me, Ashwood looked innocent, perfect, calm, but I knew it waited. I felt its presence in every shadow, every curve of the road, every flicker of light. It was alive, and one day I knew it would come for me again. Until then, I write, I document, I remember, because in Ashwood, memory is survival and forgetting is death. After that first forest encounter, I became a shadow myself. I moved quietly through my own house, peering through curtains, listening to every sound outside. Ashwood's streets, once peaceful, felt like a trap. Even the familiar corners of the town carried a weight now, as if they were observing me, waiting for a mistake. Each day brought new vanishings. I kept detailed notes in my journal, sketching maps of the town, marking which houses had disappeared neighbors, noting the times people were last seen. One afternoon, Mrs. Carter, a retired schoolteacher I had spoken to for weeks, simply stopped coming out of her house. I saw no moving cars, no lights. When I asked at the library if she had gone away, the librarian, a young man with a nervous twitch, looked at me strangely. Mrs. Carter, never heard of her. The sensation was chilling. A whole life erased, and I was the only one who remembered. The vanishings were no longer random. I began to notice patterns. They mostly happened when someone showed curiosity, asking questions, exploring the forest, trying to leave town, or even noticing someone else had disappeared. Ashwood seemed to punish awareness, and now I was hyper-aware. Every shadow, every flicker of light, every sound in the wind could mean danger. I started experimenting, testing boundaries. I would step slightly off my usual route, take small detours past empty houses, speak to new arrivals, even try subtle gestures to see if the town would react. Sometimes it did. Sometimes the streets would seem longer, curving back on themselves. Sometimes the shadows stretched unnaturally across the pavement, as if alive. I began to dread the forest more than anything. It was in one of these forays that I encountered another witness. A young man, crouched behind a hedge near the northern edge, trembling and whispering. "They're everywhere," he said, eyes wide, darting around. "They watch everything, the streets, the houses, the people." Who's watching?" I asked. He shook his head violently. "You won't understand, just don't let them see you noticing." Before I could ask more, he disappeared into the shadows. Not running, just gone. No footprints, no sound, nothing. It had happened again. Someone erased. I felt the weight of the town pressing in, warning me silently. The disappearances escalated. Over the next few weeks, I documented at least 8 people vanishing. neighbors, store clerks, a delivery driver I had waved to every morning. Each one erased so thoroughly that any evidence they existed vanished almost immediately. Social media accounts gone, names removed from public records, even my memory of them felt fragile. I started avoiding people entirely, walking only at night, keeping my gaze down. My journal became my lifeline, a reminder that I existed, that I was real. Winter came. Ashwood changed with it. Fog thickened early, street lamps flickered longer, and the forest seemed to breathe in rhythm with the wind. One night, as snow began to fall, I noticed a new family moving into the house near the school. A man, a woman, and two children. I watched from my window, careful not to interact. Everything about them screamed ordinary, and yet dread pooled in my stomach. The man waved to me that first evening. I froze, pretending not to see. The next morning the house was empty. Curtains drawn, no cars in the driveway. Neighbors acted as if the house had always been vacant. Not a single soul remembered them. The realization hit me fully. Ashwood was alive. It remembered and it erased. Its intent was precise. Its corrections were perfect. I became increasingly paranoid, noticing details no one else seemed to see. Roads bending unnaturally, lights flickering in odd rhythms, shadows moving when there should have been none. Even the simplest tasks, walking to the store, collecting mail, felt like traps. I began planning a serious escape. I mapped multiple routes, tested them at night, noted which streets looped back, which trees seemed to shift position when I wasn't looking. I packed essentials: clothes, water, a small journal, cameras, and documents proving the existence of the vanished residents. The forest became a crucible of fear. One evening I saw movement, a figure darting between the trees impossibly fast. I called out. The figure stopped just for a moment before vanishing entirely. My heart raced. I felt eyes everywhere, shadows stretching toward me, warning me, threatening me. I tried to leave once, following a back road I had memorized. The road curved unnaturally, looping back multiple times. Shadows pressed close. The fog thickened, swallowing the headlights of my car. I heard whispers in the wind, faint words that seemed like warnings. Panic gripped me. Every turn felt like it brought me closer to some invisible wall. After hours, I abandoned the attempt, retreating to my home. I realized then that leaving Ashwood was not merely difficult, it was dangerous. The town corrected itself, enforcing rules I couldn't understand. I was caught in its web, forced to live cautiously, to observe silently. The paranoia consumed me. I slept little, hearing sounds outside my window, shadows moving unnaturally, the wind whispering names I had written in my journal. I was exhausted, trapped, but alive. For now. By now, my life had shrunk to careful routines. Every step outside was measured. I avoided the streets during the day, instead walking at night, watching for new faces, new houses, new anomalies. The town felt alive in a way I couldn't explain. Shadows moved where they shouldn't. Windows seemed to shift in size or placement when I wasn't looking, and the wind carried whispers that sounded almost human. I knew I needed answers. One icy morning, I bundled up and went to the town hall, clutching my notebook. I asked about disappearances, about Mr. Keaton, about Abby and the families who had vanished. The clerk, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes, stared at me blankly. "People disappear?" she asked. "Yes, people vanish. Neighbors, friends gone." Her hands tightened on the counter. "There's nothing on record, no reports. We don't know what you mean." I felt the familiar chill in my chest. The town had swallowed them, erased every trace. I turned to the library, thinking perhaps old newspapers or archives might help. Hours passed as I flipped through brittle pages, searching for obituaries, crime reports, or any mention of vanished residents. I found some odd patterns: missing persons that had been reported, then quickly retracted, houses that had been bought and sold within days, sometimes by people who never existed in public records. It was impossible. Yet every scrap of evidence pointed to the same truth. Ashwood did not forget, but it made sure no one else remembered. Each visit out of my house brought new horrors. On my way home one evening, I saw a young man jogging along the street. He waved at me. I waved back. 2 days later, the house where he lived was empty. No car, no furniture. No one remembered him. I felt the weight of his erasure pressing into me, a reminder that awareness was dangerous. I began observing the forest more closely. At night, I would crouch just beyond the edge of the trees, notebook in hand, watching shadows move in patterns that made no sense. Figures would dart between the trees, vanish, reappear, always staying just at the periphery of vision. Once, I thought I saw the man from my first encounter, crouched low and staring directly at me. When I blinked, he was gone. The disappearances became almost methodical. First, a shadow would appear near a house. Then a window would be left open that had been shut before. A car would disappear overnight. And finally, the people themselves would vanish. I realized the town didn't erase randomly. It targeted those who noticed, those who questioned, those who tried to leave the pattern behind. I started testing boundaries. I would deliberately speak to a neighbor I had previously ignored, try to interact with someone new, or take roads I had never used. Sometimes nothing happened. Other times, the roads twisted and curved like a labyrinth, and shadows moved unnaturally, warning me. The town seemed to breathe around me, alive in a way that was impossible, a predator waiting for me to make a mistake. One night the forest called to me. I can't explain why I went. I was exhausted, paranoid, yet drawn by some irresistible compulsion. I walked along a path I had never noticed before, and the fog rolled thickly around me. I heard whispers, voices murmuring names I had written in my journal. My heart pounded. The trees seemed to lean closer, their branches like fingers. A figure appeared, tall, thin, moving with impossible speed between the shadows. I ran, stumbling over roots and rocks, my breath freezing in my lungs. I felt it pressing on my back, a weight I could not see, trying to push me back, trying to drag me into the trees. I ran blindly, zigzagging between trees until I burst into a clearing. And there he was, the first man I had seen in the forest, crouched low and watching. His eyes were wide with terror. "They'll come for you if you stay," he whispered. "They don't forgive, you have to leave." Before I could ask more, he vanished again, melting into the shadows. I realized then that escape was possible, but only if I understood the rules. The town had patterns, and those patterns could be manipulated, carefully, cautiously, or you would vanish too. I planned my escape meticulously over weeks. I studied the streets at night, the forest's edges, the loops in the roads. I memorized every shortcut, every hidden path, every anomaly. And then, one frigid winter night, I tried. The forest rose like a wall. Fog choked the road. Shadows twisted and stretched, following my car. Branches scratched at the windows, whispering my name. Every turn led me to dead ends or looping roads that bent impossibly back toward town. The shadows pressed close, moving with intent, a silent pursuit that left me trembling. Hours passed. Exhaustion gripped me. My hands cramped on the wheel. My vision blurred. Yet I pressed forward, ignoring every instinct to turn back, ignoring the whispers, ignoring the pressure pressing on my mind. At the edge of the forest, I saw it, a narrow stretch of highway that seemed to break the hold. I drove faster, my heart hammering, the fog thinning just enough to see the road. And then, as dawn crept over the horizon, I emerged. Ashwood lay behind me, calm, innocent, perfect. But I knew better. I knew it waited, and it would come for me again one day. I am safe for now. But every night I hear whispers in the wind, see shadows where none should exist, and feel the presence of the town in every curve of the road. I write. I document. I remember. Because in Ashwood, memory is survival and forgetting is death.